Hi everyone, it's Chalen. Today is January 30th, and if it's Friday, then this is The Delve. Let me start in a hotel ballroom in New York about 100 years ago. There's a man on stage in a tuxedo. He's holding up a cloudy little bottle of water. He calls it Radathor. This, he promises, is not just water. It's water enlivened with radium, the miracle element of the age. It'll cure fatigue, sharpen the mind, restore your manhood, maybe your golf swing. Doctors recommend it. Businessmen buy cases of it. Newspaper run glowing ads and testimonials. And then slowly, the rich industrialist who drinks 3 bottles a day starts to fall apart. His bones weaken, his jaw disintegrates. Pieces of his skull literally come loose. He dies of radiation poisoning. The science was fake. The marketing was excellent. Hold that in your mind, because this is not a one-off. History is full of this stuff. Mesmerists waving magnets, doctors selling cigarettes, tonics that cured everything except the need for another bottle. Humans have always been vulnerable to people who can talk like scientists without doing any science. What's new is where that bottle of Radathor lives now. Today, it lives in your For You page. It's the guy with the ring light explaining that gravity isn't real. It's the wellness influencer promising you can heal every disease with olive oil and detox. It's the account with 1 million followers calmly telling you that CERN opened a portal to another dimension on Wednesday. And crucially, they don't sound like cranks on a street corner. They sound like the lab coat guy from the old cigarettes ads. They say, "Studies show," and "Scientists don't want you to know this," and "The math checks out." They flash a graph. They talk fast. They sound confident. And confidence, online, often beats accuracy. Now we've layered something new on top of this. AI. In the last couple of years, we have essentially invented a new kind of oracle. Not a priest in a temple, a chat window with a typing indicator. People now ask their phones, "Should I vaccine my kid? Is climate change real? Can you explain quantum physics in 30 seconds?" And the machine answers in fluent, authoritative English, even when it is very confidently wrong. So here's the question that keeps bothering me. In a world where anyone, and now anything, can sound scientific, what does real science even look like? How do we tell the difference between "this is hard but true" and "this is nonsense with excellent branding"? And what happens when the nonsense starts to shape our politics, our health, our sense of reality? Today's guest lives right at that fault line. Dr. Blitz is a theoretical physicist. He does the real thing: equations, peer review, colleagues who argue with him in front of chalkboards. And then he logs onto the internet. He's gone viral, debunking the black hole under the flat earth theory. He's argued with people who believe CERN is summoning demons. He watches AI-generated explainers rack up millions of views while butchering basic physics. And he's trying to figure out what that does to public trust in science. On this episode of The Delve, we're going to talk about all of that. Why we're so drawn to conspiracies. Why I did my own research feels empowering even when the research is a YouTube rabbit hole. How AI could supercharge pseudoscience, and how it might also help us fight it. And we'll ask a slightly uncomfortable question. In an economy that rewards attention, not accuracy, can the truth still compete? I'm Jalen, and today we're separating real physics from radium water with Dr. Blitz. Let's delve. Dr. Blitz, welcome to The Delve. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your content and how did you get onto this life path?
Yeah, so I'm a mathematical physicist, or at least there's a long story there, but in some
Okay.
sense, I'm a mathematical physicist. I went to undergrad, I got a degree in math and a degree in physics, and then I proceeded to get a PhD in physics, and then I worked in a math department. And I've generally just wanted to do kind of physics that Einstein did for like my whole life.
Okay.
I roughly ended up doing that, kind of mathy, kind of physicsy, to do with gravity, space-time, all these things that I love. And then right around the time I finished my PhD, so I guess a month before I graduated, I started doing TikTok content on science because it's cool and I like talking about it.
Yeah.
And during my grad school, I had the opportunity to teach, but once I finished, I wasn't teaching anymore. So it would have been lovely to keep doing that. So I did. And that's what happened. I started making science content. And this also bled over into anti-conspiracy, anti-pseudoscience content as well.
Right.
And so, I have split my time on TikTok in some sense, maybe 60-40. I spend maybe 60% of my time making educational content in the form of short form videos, sometimes debunking misinformation, sometimes just saying, hey, there's this cool thing about black holes. And then the other 40% of the time, I spend my time doing TikTok live streams. So often that takes the form of either like theological debates, which are particularly interesting for me, or conspiracy debates where, I might talk about flat Earth,
Sure.
or climate change things like that. So generally taking the side of the mainstream scientific consensus, of course. So I found myself in this place where half of the people who watch me know me as that guy that does TikTok debates and yells at stupid people. And the other half of the people who watch my content are like, hey, that guy that makes cool, informative TikTok videos, what are you doing a live stream? So it kind of just happened on its own. It wasn't some big plan. I just wanted to talk about science, and then here we are.
I was telling you before we start recording, it was funny to see you over the screen because I've been seeing you on TikTok and I love the stitches where you come in and you're like, oh God, this isn't going to end well. And I'm really curious as to why do uninformed people feel the need to talk? There's like this something that's compelling them to go in front of a camera and just blurt out crazy stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to give you some studied result, but it just seems like, and this is whether it's some content that someone's pushing out in the form of a video or on a live stream, it just seems like there are a lot of people with generally ill-informed ideas. And I guess 100 years ago, somebody who had an ill-informed idea was alone in a town and they might go scream on a street corner and hold up a sign, but nobody really took them seriously.
Right.
But with the advent of social media, in particular live stream interactions and short form content and things like this, maybe in the last 10, 15 years, these people could find each other and amplify each other's ideas. So what ends up happening is that you have people who otherwise would be told by their community, their local community, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. There's Jim, the smart guy who teaches high school, go talk to him. Those people aren't getting in some sense, the criticism that they need. Instead, they're just hearing from other people that say, yeah, this idea is great. This idea is great. And so they think that they're informed on the topic is what seems to be the case.
Sure.
And echo chambers and information bubbles are a contributing factor to this.
Are there people after you do this debunking with them and you get to have a chat with them, maybe, do they ever say, oh, sorry, let me put out a new video and say I was wrong? Or do they just kind of say, oops?
That has happened, I think, once. And it was actually fairly recently, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And the guy was incredibly gracious. I even DM'd him before I put out the video and I said, hey, I'm going to put out this video. You seem like a decent dude. I'm going to try to be kind in it, but I'm just letting you know so that if you want to put out a video or something like that. And then he came into the comments of my video and he said, yeah, I probably should have researched more before I put out this video. And then he put out another video late. He didn't take down his video, which is fine. But he put out another video saying, yeah, blah, 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 I have more to learn, et cetera, et cetera. And that was great.
Wow.
That almost never happens. Typically what happens is, in one instance, there's a woman, I won't name names, but there's a woman who is pretty prolific with making this kind of like, she's a flat earther, she's young earth creationist, all this stuff, COVID skeptical, all of this. So I end up stitching her content quite frequently. And at one point I made a video that went more viral than the original video did. I have a policy of only stitching viral videos, so just to not amplify bad ideas. And my video got more traction than hers did. And so she made a response video where she essentially called me someone who abuses children. So to be 100% precise, she accused me of that in the comments of that video. In the video, she instead just called me a whole bunch of other horrible things.
Wow.
So typically the response is pretty negative. Either it's overtly negative and they'll just go on the attack, or they'll just block me. That's what usually happens.
Yeah. Wow. I think this just reinforces the need of science communicators and debunking work. Obviously, you can see the importance of that. That's what you do.
I mean, I agree. And that's one of the justifications I give myself for picking low-hanging fruit, if you will.
Which I applaud.
Well, I mean, debunking videos are much easier to make than like actually going and reading some paper from the 1980s and actually digesting it, right? So in some sense, it's low-hanging fruit, but that's how I justify it to myself, right? But this is a service that people need. The unfortunate part is that because of the way algorithms work today, and perhaps this wasn't the case 15 years ago on YouTube, but because of the way the algorithms work, the people who need to see it are often not the people who end up seeing it. So instead, the way I see it is that, look, the people who are going to watch this are people who are going to generally agree with me anyway. But then they will have the ammunition that if they have a cousin or if they have a friend who's teetering on the edge of falling down XYZ rabbit hole, at least then they'll know something that they can use to dissuade their friend or their family member from falling down that rabbit hole.
Right. I want to switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
Let's talk about AI.
Okay.
And AI, is it friend or is it foe?
I don't know. If you had asked me last year, I probably would have been like, probably net bad. And I might still say it's a net bad, but I think of it more as like a tool. And this is in part because I've started using it, not in like my professional work, but just as like, I was on holiday recently. God, I sound so European. I was on vacation recently. And my wife and I were struggling to plan what to do for our in-laws. So we just like, okay, well, I have a ChatGPT subscription. ChatGPT, give us a 3-day itinerary to Paris.
Yeah.
Like just as a way to stave off some emotional labor, if you will.
Sure.
So I think that there's some absolutely great benefits that can be made with these kind of large language models and AI in general.
Yeah.
I've even used it to an extent in my professional persona, say, hey, there's this thing I need to learn about. What are like the relevant sources for this? And then rather than digging through Google Scholar for 2 hours, I can just have it put together a list of sources that I should go read. So I think that as a tool, it can be used quite beneficially. However, the way people treat it lately, especially people who are treating it in the same way as like an oracle, they just have full-blown conversations with an AI and then say, well, it must be right because my ChatGPT avatar said so.
Yep.
And that's dangerous because, and so I can give an example. Somewhat recently, I was looking through a paper that was written by someone that I tangentially knew from 2000, and it was a rather complicated paper. And I wanted to check to see if my understanding of this paper was correct. So I uploaded it to ChatGPT because I was trying to kind of summarize it for a video. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't making any mistakes. An extra pair of eyes never hurts. And it says, yes, your summary is correct here, except this, this, and this. And it made a mistake. It actually made a mistake that I didn't make. And the only reason I was able to spot that is because I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing with respect to, gravitational dynamics, Hawking radiation, all these things.
Yeah.
If you didn't know what you were doing and you did the same thing, it might spit out an answer that sounds right, and then you just believe it without being able to actually check that it is correct. And I think that can be really, really dangerous because it's convincing, right? The way that it outputs, text is convincing. It reads really well. So I don't know. It might be a net negative in the same way that perhaps the internet's a net negative, but it's here to stay, and I think it can have a positive effect as a tool.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about digital literacy. And I think we touched on it a little bit with this AI thing, but how can you spot untrue science content on social media?
Well, so
I mean, maybe your answer is different from how a person should find.
Right. So my first answer is actually I've become completely addicted to TikTok. I say that in the kindest way possible, but like I have an Instagram account, I never use it. I have YouTube and I use that to listen to things in the background while I'm working. But most of the time, if I'm not doing anything else, I'm doom scrolling on TikTok. And I've curated my algorithm so that I don't actually get any of that stuff on my For You page, right?
Okay.
So most of the nonsense videos that I actually find is just people tagging me in them.
Okay.
And almost surely the people who are tagging me in those videos, they have their own heuristic for determining if something is nonsense. But, I will go and watch it and make sure that it is. And so If it's something in an area that I'm intimately familiar with, like, for example, anything physics related, I just have the expertise that I know, at least in most cases. I have the expertise to know whether they're talking about something sensible or not. And it will sound rather elitist, and perhaps because it is, but if somebody is making some sort of explainer on, I don't know, quantum entanglement, or some sort of explainer on the Big Bang or something like that, and they don't have letters after their name, I am immediately skeptical. If only because, like, these are complicated things, and there are people who go to school to study these things.
Yep.
And if you didn't do that, then you probably learned it by reading a Scientific American article, which is not like a good way to source an explainer. So there is some sort of authority skepticism that I have, and this follows on into areas that I'm not familiar with. There is a lovely creator on TikTok who I guess I won't shill for, but she's nearly done with, or she has finished her PhD in something adjacent to biochemistry. And she talks about these kinds of things a lot. So I know that I can trust her on these things. But if somebody comes on and starts talking about, I don't know, the heart is sending out XYZ biological waves or whatever, and I don't have any reason that I should trust them, and then I look into them and they're like a holistic healer, I'm just skeptical.
Yeah.
And so maybe I just trust authority too much. But I think generally, like, and I give this advice to people all the time, you shouldn't always believe experts. But if you don't know, and you do just default to believing experts, you'll be right 95% of the time. And so if somebody comes across a video that is not being promoted, is not backed up by expert sources, is not backed up by any sort of authority or expertise in the matter, you should just be skeptical of that. That's normal. There are plenty of science communicators that are going to tell you about what's actually true. Why listen to somebody who, and by the way, I should say, there are a few quite exceptional scientific journalists who I'm quite fond of, and they actually are very, they might not be as knowledgeable about the subject matter as I am, but they're very, very humble, and they know what they don't know.
Right.
And so I can very much appreciate that, and I would recommend people pay attention to what they say at all times. This is all to say, as a layperson, if you're coming across something that is making something that sounds kind of, not miraculous, but sounds extraordinary or really neat, and it's some scientific and complicated thing, check to see, should you trust that person? Have they gone to school for this for 10 years? If not, be skeptical.
Right.
It's not a perfect heuristic, but it does work most of the time.
Is there something we should be doing if we see something that's nonsensical? Should we send it to you? Should we just write it in the comments? What should people do? This episode of The Delve is produced on Soundly, the AI platform my team and I built to power shows just like this one. If you make a podcast and you're tired of juggling editing tools, noisy audio, and scattered files, Soundly brings everything into one place. It cleans up your sound, speeds up your edits, and helps your show run like a real studio operation. If you're a creator or producer, you can try it at soundlyai.com. That's soundlyai.com.
One thing that can definitely help, and I know people will say if you leave a comment, you're giving an engagement, and that's what people want. But one thing that can definitely help is if somebody is not sure about what, and I can only speak for TikTok, of course. I have no idea how the environment is on YouTube, for example. But if there's some video that's kind of sketchy and people are not sure how to take it, you know, if you're a layperson and you don't know whether it's true or not, most people are just going to go to the comments. And so if they see that the majority of the comments are agreeing with the video, then they're more likely to believe it. So absolutely, I would say that if you can reach a critical mass of, oh, this video is nonsense, go check out XYZ or go read XYZ, I think that that probably is helpful. Obviously, I have no data to support that, but that seems like it should be helpful. On the other hand, absolutely, if somebody sees a physics thing or perhaps a math thing, a space thing, and they're not sure, send it to me. I'm happy to take a look.
No way.
On the other hand, though, what happens quite a lot, and this is just because I'm medium-sized content creator who does this kind of stuff, is people will tag me in things completely unrelated to my field.
Oh.
And I do have a nose on me for doing some underlying research to figure out what's going on. But then that's just me putting on my skeptic hat and not me actually using the expertise I have.
Right.
So while I appreciate when people tag me in some claim that somebody has cured cancer by using sound waves to, energy, whatever, I appreciate that. And I appreciate people thinking of me. All I'm going to do is use skeptical Googling and looking up the people making the claims and looking for citation. That's all I'm going to do. I can't actually use any authority there. So this is to say, tag me in things that I should definitely know a lot about. Don't tag me in things that I shouldn't know a lot about.
Okay. And then when in doubt, just write "this is nonsense" in the comments.
Yeah, or say, yeah, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Maybe they do. And so if you want to leave that comment, you should say, hey, this person didn't go to school for this, you should be wary or something.
Right. What is the most nonsensical thing you've ever heard?
So the order of operations by which I started my TikTok account was my wife actually introduced me to the app in spring of 2022. And so I came across flat earth debates, right?
Okay.
There was a woman, she doesn't do it as much anymore, a lovely Danish woman named Maria. She was hosting these on the Globe side, and she would bring up flat earthers. And I'm like, hey, I can talk about this. I want to know about this, or I want to rebut this. But you needed 1,000 followers, so that's why I started making content.
Okay.
At the time, you needed about 1,000 followers to join. But in the early days, there was a guy whose name I won't mention to, save him from embarrassment. He was a flat earther, which is already like pretty high up there in the absurdity. But his flat earth model, like there's kind of like a consensus flat earth model, like, the sun goes around over the top and like we don't know what's below, and there, anyway, there's a whole thing. But his version of flat earth was so absurd because it relied on there being a black hole beneath the earth emitting like antimatter that passes through the it was
that's wild.
I don't want to say that he like should see somebody, because again, I'm not a mental health specialist or whatever, but it went beyond the pale of normal flat earth stuff.
Okay.
To put it bluntly, it was flat earth and then a whole bunch of extra nonsense added on top of that.
Yeah. Does he have a big following?
I haven't heard from him in like a year and a half.
Okay.
Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, he got more attention. And, there's a few people in this anti-flat earth debunking community that I'm familiar with, like these kind of people who go up and do debates. And we all still joke about him because he was quite a character. But I haven't seen him in a while. So I don't know where he went. Maybe he moved on. And I hope he did. I hope he moved on, takes care of his family now. I think he has a family, Okay.
How do we reestablish trust in institutions and authorities and experts in this modern era when everyone has a microphone?
I have no idea. I mean, like I can speculate, but honestly, like it's like the hardest problem right now, right? Because the trouble is that people do have trust. They just have trust in the wrong people, right? And I think it's because essentially, I'm no historian. I'm political, but not political enough that I'm confident to make dominant assertions, right?
Okay.
But like there was this thing, what was it? It was in the 80s, and I think Reagan did away with it. It was this business of, it was an FTC regulation that news channels had to show both sides equally and not prefer. It got taken down by Reagan. I don't remember what it's called. And that led to Fox News, right? But more broadly, that idea that you can just have echo chambers of people who sound authoritative, that's the problem, right? Because people do have trust. But if you're, I don't want to say normie, because there are plenty of normies who love science too, but if you're like kind of like a podcast bro kind, like the red pill bro, then you do have trust in institutions. It's just the institution is Joe Rogan and all of his guests, right?
Right.
Not to say that people shouldn't listen to Joe Rogan because he's an interesting character, but when the only way that you're getting your exposure to archaeology or quantum gravity or whatever these academic fields are is through Joe Rogan guests, well, if the first person you hear is Eric Weinstein, or who's the pseudo-archaeologist guy that was on Rogan a while ago, if that's your first exposure to these ideas, I mean, people tend to believe the things that they hear first. They tend to latch onto those ideas. And that's risky because once you already believe somebody, people are much less likely to change their mind. One could say that if we just did a better job doing education before people start having their opinions set in stone, that might help. Because clearly not everybody listens to Joe Rogan the first time or listens to whatever UFO conspiracy podcast the first time. Not everybody who listens to that believes it.
Great.
And so there's some difference between people. I just don't know what it is. It must be some skeptical approach that is taught to them. I don't know.
I feel like the folks who are on, I don't want to call them the loonier side, but the ones that are on like the more outlandish side, maybe that's more fun and more entertaining and more hopeful.
Oh, it definitely is.
Yeah. And then you get the textbook mainstream version. You're like, oh, this is so boring.
There's this consensus amongst the globe earthers, the anti-flat earth debate bros, right?
The globe earthers? Is that a term?
Yeah. So the flat earthers will call us globe heads, or they will, or they'll call us, they'll also call us, can I use a term that might be offensive to?
Oh, yeah,
so
sure.
Flat earthers will often call us like globetards as well. And, we call them flurfs. So, there's fair play, I guess. They tend to be meaner about it, but that's neither here nor there. The point is like us globers we have this consensus that like, yeah, the reason why they believe the things they do is because it feels good to feel right. And it feels good to be in the position where you feel like you know something that nobody else knows.
Yeah.
And there's two ways to have that feeling, because by the way, that's almost certainly universal amongst humans. And I absolutely share that feeling. I love knowing something that nobody else knows. But there's two ways to get there. One is to put in the hard work and actually figure out something that nobody else knows.
Right.
The most satisfying thing in my day job is proving a theorem or coming up with a model that nobody's ever heard of. And then you're the only human alive that gets to know that. That's amazing. That just takes a lot of effort. And most of the time you're wrong. The other alternative is you just believe something that is obviously nonsense. And then you're in a small club of people who know the truth, right? And all of the mainstream people, they just don't get it. They've been brainwashed. Like that's a great feeling. So I understand it. It's just they're taking the wrong approach.
Yeah. I hear you. What's the craziest space fact that is keeping you up at night? What's your Roman Empire?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was actually talking about this. This is completely a tangent, by the way. I was talking about this with someone, but the notion of somebody's Roman Empire, nobody knows what that means if you're not like on TikTok or something, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like
That's
this is
true, yeah.
like, what is that? What is your Roman Empire? And I remember hearing like, I'm Jewish, by the way, a secular Jew, but I'm Jewish. So actually my Roman Empire is often the Roman Empire and what they did to
also Jewish.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. So like we just think about the Romans a lot, right? Like that there's a whole holiday about the Romans, right? But setting that aside, regarding like my space Roman Empire, if you will, generally these are like the really, really deep questions of like, can we say anything about what happened before the Big Bang? That's a question that bothers me a lot. There's also the question of, these are things that bother me. I'll tell you a cool space fact in a minute.
Okay.
Another thing that bothers me is there's this philosophical issue of we can write down all these great models, but at best those are like descriptions or models of the actual world. And I wish somehow we could actually figure out what the world is rather than just writing down math that describes the world. Because in principle, like the math could just be right, but you have the wrong interpretation of what that math means, right? So those things bother me. But something that got me into physics to begin with was black holes. Like I found out about them when I was like 8. I saw a picture, I read some, whatever the precursor to I Love Science was. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. And so something that I think about way more frequently than I should, because it's a really, really small thing, is that black holes are sometimes repulsive.
Okay.
This is something that nobody thinks about, but if a black hole is spinning fast enough, and you take something like, a rock, and you spin it really fast, and you drop it down along the axis of rotation, sometimes it'll bounce off.
Of the black hole.
Of the black hole, yeah. And this is like a gravitational effect. The gravitational effect is repulsive, and that's so weird.
Oh, you mean like actually repulsive, not
Yeah.
like disgusting.
Yeah, no, like actually repulsive. It'll bounce off.
That's what I thought when you're saying black holes are repulsive. Like, are they? They're disgusting?
No, they're amazing. I mean, they are. They can be. But no, it's like I made a video about this a while ago, and I still think about it all the time. It's so weird. We think of black holes always sucking things in, but like in the right conditions, things can bounce off of them, which just, I have no intuition for it. But it's what the math says.
That's your Roman Empire. We found it.
Yeah.
I love that. I like to end these things with a speed round. And these are my personal fun questions. These were not given to me by the producers.
Sure.
So good luck.
Okay.
What are those spinny things that they just discovered under the pyramids? Have you?
Again, not an archaeologist. Probably nothing.
Okay.
My guess is like dirt.
Okay. that works. Aliens, real? Are they coming to save us? What's their deal?
The universe is very large, maybe infinitely large. Life probably exists out there. Who knows if it's close? Almost certainly they haven't been here.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. What's cooler, black holes or time travel?
Black holes, because they're real.
And they're repulsive.
Yeah.
Dark matter, invisible friend, or a cosmic prank?
I lean towards invisible friend, if by that you mean something like just stuff that we can't see but is actually there. I lean towards that.
Yeah.
But, I'd be open to anything else.
Okay. TikTok commentators, chaotic genius or black hole of logic?
What do you mean by commentators? Do you mean people in the comments or like live streamers?
No, I mean the people speaking, the live streamers, the
Oh,
creators. Yeah.
um, I think that it's a bimodal distribution. There's not much in the middle.
Okay.
There are a lot of people who are really, really good and a lot of people who are not so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I understand that. Most misunderstood science concept in 3 words or less.
Quantum mechanics.
Okay. Describe this for me.
That's two. I only have one more word. Like, can I give more?
Can you walk me through this? Yeah.
Yeah. It's this whole business with like entanglement and the universe not being locally real. People tend to think that quantum mechanics is more mysterious than it is. It's essentially just math that makes stochastic or probabilistic predictions. There are correlations that are unexpected if you believe Newton was right the whole time. But if you don't believe that, then there's correlations and measurements that are just there. And, that's just how quantum mechanics works. There's nothing spooky.
Okay. I feel like I'm no closer to understanding what that is, but
Well,
that's okay.
that's why it's so misunderstood.
Yeah, there we go. And one word to describe the universe.
Big.
Yeah.
No, that's a bad answer. It's true, but it's a bad answer. One word? I don't want to say incredible. Maybe astounding would be good.
Okay. Astounding word. Astounding's better than big. So I like that better. Yeah. Everyone, we have Dr. Blitz on the Delve today. That was wild. Thanks for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, I always enjoy having like these science episodes. We don't do them often, so this was a treat.
I mean, it was great to be here, honestly. I tend to talk a lot, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no, it was great. Thanks again. Huge thanks to Dr. Blitz for joining us and for doing the hard work of making real science understandable while wading through a universe of bad takes and bogus theories. If you want to know more from him, we'll have links to his work and socials in the show notes. Go give him a follow and show some love. If this conversation made you think differently about science, the internet, or your own For You page, do me a favor. Leave us a 5-star rating, hit follow or subscribe, and share this episode with one friend who loves a good rabbit hole, but could use a slightly more scientific one. My thanks as always to the team behind the scenes here at The Delve for making this show possible, and to you for listening week after week. I'm Jalen. Stay curious, stay a little skeptical, and we'll see you next Friday. The Delve is produced on Soundly, the AI platform we built for podcasters. You can learn more at soundlyai.com.